if it wasn't discrimination. And you have the nerve. No. You have the nerve to sit there on your high horse and preach to these bottom-feeding dwellers who sit in the chat room, like Alliance Blog, who's been doing this for over a decade and still only got 2,000 followers. Yeah, I see you. You're a jabroni and a ham sandwich, and I don't want to hear from you ever again about what the NWA is supposed to do. This is what pro wrestling is supposed to be. This is what the NWA is supposed to be. No. You don't tell anyone what the NWA is supposed to be, and you certainly don't lecture me about what the NWA is supposed to be. I made the NWA.
Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's the radioactive pop with Danny Limelight, United Wrestling Network World Heavyweight Champion. And make sure you tune into the Alliance Blog every week. You heard it here first. Straight from Poppy.
Times are tough now, guys, and it's no joke out here. That's why I'm very proud to be partnering with the Upside app. They're leveling the playing field, guys. They're giving you opportunities to earn cash back on purchases for groceries, purchases for gasoline, purchases for food. These are the things we all spend our money on all the time. I believe in Upside. I use Upside weekly. My lifetime earnings is over $408, and you too can be earning cash back on your fill-ups, your groceries, or your eating out experiences just by signing up, and it's free. By using my invite code JASON75338, that's Jason 753338, you'll earn $5 cash back on your first fill-up. Use the link in the video description or download the app, but make sure you use that invite code JASON753338 and make money by using the Upside app.
Hey, real quick, I got asked a question in the chat, so I'm going to answer it. I'm going to bring it up for you guys to talk about too, because I think it's a great question, and it's from our pal Paladin. It's from our pal Aiden, and he suggests or asks, what are your thoughts on Aldis? I said Aldis. It sounded like a guy from New Jersey. What are your thoughts on Aldis getting a producer role in the WWE? They wanted him for in-ring talent, but he chose to stay with the NWA for a few months more.
Chose.
What's that?
So I'm not sure how much he chose. He was under contract for a while.
Yeah, like he didn't have the option to leave. He was under. Remember, okay, so looking at the contract situation again, this is just secondhand information. This might not be accurate. This is what we heard. So I want to preface that by saying, like, I don't actually know the contract status that Nick Aldis had with the NWA. However, I do know that their contracts tended to expire at the end of the year. So when Aldis signed on in 2017, it was towards the end of the year, and they had him. I think it was a multi-year deal from 2017. When it got to 2019, they re-signed him, and I remember in 2020 they made the announcement, and it was like, oh, Aldis is re-signed with the NWA. And we're like, of course he is. Why wouldn't he? Because this was before the pandemic, and there was no reason not to support him, not to enjoy him, all that stuff, right? And so then at the end of 2020, during the pandemic where everyone was on hiatus, and it was the same thing for, I believe, Thunder Rosa as well. All those champions got re-signed because they had an option on their contract that they could exercise an option to keep him for another year. So at the last moment, because there was a point in time, guys, the rumor has it, Billy didn't tell me this, but the rumor has it that they were this close to just shutting the doors down. And I think a lot of us forget about that. There was a point in time where the NWA might not have come back after the pandemic. So these contracts were renegotiated at the late hour. And I think it's because they got that deal with Fight, and they said, okay, you're going to help pay for the production of the show. We're going to re-sign some of these talents. So Thunder Rosa got re-signed in 2020 for the 2021 season, and so did Nick Aldis. And remember, there were like 3 or 4 months there where there was nothing happening in the NWA at all. Remember, like they did a few matches with Primetime Live, and then there was a falling out between United Wrestling Network and the NWA. And then, unfortunately, Josephus passed away. So all this stuff kind of happened while the NWA was inactive. When they came back, what's the first thing they did? They did that pay-per-view. They dedicated it to the memory of Josephus, and they had all these talents who, it was a different roster, right? Like you had Aaron Stevens, you had Trevor Murdoch, but there was no Josephus. There was no Royce Isaacs. There was no Zicky Dice. There was no Ricky Starks. The whole roster looked different. There wasn't even a Allison Kay at this point. So I guess what I'm trying to say is all this was under contract, and they had that option for 2022 as well. And I think what, he had said, hey, look, I'm not going to resign in 2023. And that's when the whole thing kind of came out with all this stuff. Happy, although like you could read the room, he wasn't happy with the comments that he was making and the gimmick that they were trying to come up with, where him and Billy were kind of shooting on each other. And of course that was gonna end poorly. They worked themselves into a shoot, but eventually, he's out of contract. At any point, the WWE could have picked him up. They chose not to. I don't know what their reasoning is. I've said it before. I don't have to like all this to tell you that he's a great talent. And if I was starting a wrestling company, he'd be someone I would definitely look at. But for whatever reason, the WWE didn't hire him. Maybe it was a hiring freeze. I don't know. But he didn't get rehired from the he didn't get hired from the WWE to come to the NWA. Let me try that again. He didn't get hired into the WWE for whatever reason. They offered him this role as a producer. He took it. I think it's a smart move for Nick Aldis. He right now he has a nagging back injury. He took some time away from the indies to focus on getting his back in shape. If he's not able to go the way he used to, this is a great transition. Look at what they did for Adam Pearce, right? Adam Pearce, he took his shoes off in the middle of the championship wrestling from Hollywood ring. He took off his shoes and he started working for the WWE Performance Center. Took that Performance Center job and became a producer and an agent for the WWE. Moved that into Succession to become essentially the authority figure that's on TV every week, who's making great money and not taking bumps every week. He's still very much a part of the wrestling business. He still gets to cut promos in a sense, and he doesn't have to take a single bump. So, like, for his family and for him, like, that was a great decision. Would I like to see Pierce wrestle one more time? Absolutely. But, he made the best decision for him. And I see what you're saying, Paladin. He's only 37. Sure. But he also has a bump card filled out. And if you could walk away from the sport on your own recognizance and have a fruitful life afterwards and not end up in a wheelchair or having nagging issues for the rest of your life, I mean, maybe that's the way to go. I'd love to hear your take on it, Jane. What do you think?
I think he'd make an excellent agent, and it's a lot of times the agents don't last long in the WWE. Pierce is definitely an exception, but a lot of the agents don't generally last long in the WWE, and they end up going back to the indie circuits and wrestling again. I think that happened twice with David Finley and other wrestlers and agents too, and trainers and stuff like that. So I guess right now, if he can get paid to recover, learn as much as he can from the WWE, he's also got a child. So, and his child's at the age now that he'll know that if he's away, like on certain times, so now he can do what he needs to do, work, go see his child, not have to worry about injuring himself, be able to play with his child, to be able to do fun things, hold them and carry them and do whatever he needs to do. Doesn't have to worry about all the wear and tear on his body.
Okay, maybe you're the elder statesman here. I mean, obviously you got bad knees, bad back, bad hips, bad shoulders.
Yeah, you're not wrong on any of that.
I'm like 10 years younger and I got all the same problems, but let's go.
No, I mean, look, Aldis, he didn't necessarily wrestle a modern style of wrestling. But he has been in it a long time, and he has worked probably stiffer things than what a lot of wrestlers are used to. I don't think a lot of people understand that, you know, Pat O'Connor wrestled like into his 60s or something like that. He could still get in the ring. Put on
Who was that?
Pat O'Connor.
Pat O'Connor.
And he held the NWA world title in, I think, the late 50s. He was still wrestling in like 81. And he looked his age, you know, he looked old, but he was still wrestling. He could still do it. And that was because in those old, slower, boring days, that some people like to call it, they didn't put as much punishment on their body. And it still looked real, but they didn't go out and do a whole lot of jumping and everything that, you know, just tore their things apart. If you're talking about Prince earlier, a lot of people don't realize Prince had double hip replacement because, you know, just within a couple of years before he OD'd, probably because, well, the reason he had the double hip surgery was because of all those years of him jumping on stage and jumping off speakers and jumping from one platform to another in high-heeled boots. You know, it takes its toll after a while.
Are you telling me it had nothing to do with his bad basketball skills?
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway, but, you know, to Nick Aldis, yeah, I mean, he's talked about his back injury and stuff like that. Will he wrestle again one day? Maybe he is young. If he can get his back sorted out and back in play. But, I mean, we've seen with Thunder Rosa. She's been out, what, a year now?
Yeah.
And she's still trying to make a comeback.
Maybe he hurt his back during the NWA for so long.
Probably.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, but, you know, our friend Kevin Douglas, you know, one of the things that he'll tell you is one of the reasons he got out of wrestling when he did was because he didn't want to have that broken down body.
Yeah.
And we still see where years later he had a medical issue because of it.
He almost died. You guys, like, if for those of you guys who don't remember Kevin, because it's been a while since he's been on, Kevin Douglas is a former world junior heavyweight champion, and he did go. I mean, when he wrestled, he went hard, and an injury he had several years ago came back to haunt him, where he was passing out, like just passing out at work, at home, and he went to the hospital. They had to do emergency surgery to replace his trachea, right? I think that's what it was.
Yeah, his artery, one of his arteries.
The artery.
Was it the carotid artery?
You know, I'm not trying to be silly, but it might have been. And had they not done the surgery when they did, it could have killed him. He could have died.
He basically had a stroke.
Yeah.
A small one. He went blind in his left eye. I think that's when that's how he ended up in the hospital. And so, yeah, I mean, and that was damage from wrestling. And it came back to haunt him all these years later.
Yeah.
And, you know, how many injuries have we seen? I just read recently where basically everyone's telling Big E not to step back in the ring again. You know, like all the medical professionals. Because he's hurt. And, you know, a lot of people get excited when Bryan Danielson finally came back and stuff like that. The guy gets injured every 3 months.
Yeah.
In some form or another. You know, his last one was a very bad break. Was it his ankle or his leg?
I think that's because he's vegan, doesn't eat meat.
Maybe. But whatever it was because he was in a wrestling ring is the reason.
Yeah.
And
he's also no longer vegan, I don't think.
Well, good for him.
Maybe he's a vegetarian now. But anyway,
we're saying there's so many jokes to be made here, and I'm not going to do it. I don't want to offend our audience.
Yeah, I know. But
Tell them to me, I'll say them.
My point is that, I mean, look, one of the agents back there is Jason Jordan, who, used to team with Chad Gable and got a neck injury. And he was smart. He never came back. He took the backstage role. And too many people are getting seriously injured, and then they want to come back. And it's like, man, it ain't worth it. And so if Nick Aldis, if his back is messed up, then don't go back in the ring. If NWA will pay you to be a producer or an agent or whatever.
Yeah.
And gosh. And then do that. So
Jason Kidd, yeah.
Tyson, all right, that's another one. I mean, even Steamboat's son, Richie, right? So they called him, he injured his back. And it's a shame that people are, we talk a lot about PJ Hawk, and we enjoyed the Hawks. And I'll tell you to this day, PJ Hawk was an idiot for jumping off a balcony in a mall. Because one of these days, people are going to do that, and they're going to go splat. And, one of the things that Jaden and I send each other back and forth are indie shows where people are all but killing themselves.
For a hot dog and a handshake.
Yeah, for a hot dog. Yeah, hot dog, drink, and chips. You can have 2 of the 3, and I'll shake your hand. Get out of here, kid. You bother me.
Yeah, unlike Dave Daw, who's killing the wrestling business, they're killing themselves.
Right.
Can we get Dave Daw to do something that would kill himself? Mm-hmm. I take that back. You know what? When it came out of my mouth, it felt wrong. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that.
No, that's okay. Now we're, Dave Lagana's going to call you and make sure that you're not promoting suicide. So anyhow,
it was a bad joke.
Right.
He's making a bad joke about a bad joke.
Okay. Oh, I got it.
Yeah, I explained it to him.
Am I getting canceled? You guys
so anyway, I saw where at least one person, I think maybe 2 people, said something about Nick Aldis claims NWA owes him money. I don't know. I know Billy Corgan said he was suspended indefinitely for something. So my guess is he probably never paid the last of the contract.
Probably.
Arguing, arguing that he was suspended. So.
And look, I feel the NWA owes me money. All right. Let's be honest here, guys. It's easy to say that. We don't know nothing. We don't know nothing. Just because I say something doesn't mean it's true. And I like Nick. Well, let me rephrase that. I like the wrestler that Nick Aldis was. I didn't like the person that Nick Aldis was. If Aldis was owed money, he was also flapping his gums quite a bit in the negative about the NWA. If I'm Billy Corgan, I'm not going to pay that guy for talking all that shit about me, especially when I could terminate his contract at any time. That's the thing about sports entertainment, guys. Their contracts are very one-sided. Until there's a union, these guys are always going to be at the mercy of the employer. And if tomorrow Vince McMahon wants to fire the entire WWE roster, then he can. That's his not obligation. That's his
prerogative.
Prerogative, yeah. And what's that?
It's my prerogative.
There you go. And
right, Bobby Brown, there we go.
That's Chris Brown. Never mind. And the thing about it is, if Billy says, "Hey, you know what? I don't like the way you're talking about the NWA. Well, you're under contract. I'm going to go ahead and terminate your contract." He has that right to do that.
It depends on how the contract's worded. Honestly, I would think Aldis to be smarter than let a contract out, but it all depends on how contracts are worded.
Well,
can we read some
the
of
way it was phrased? The way it was phrased, both in the NWA and outside, was Billy Corgan said that he had been suspended indefinitely, which was like in October or something like that. His contract was supposed to end in December.
Yeah.
My guess is that he never paid him whatever that contract was from October through December. I'm assuming that there was money that was supposed to be paid. Billy Corgan says you're suspended. If Nick Aldis says he is owed it, but he's unwilling to sue for it, my guess is the contract probably allowed for that.
Thank you for tuning in to the Alliance Blog Podcast, a presentation of alliance-wrestling.com, the premier source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. Would you consider subscribing so you never miss a new episode? You can follow us on all social media at the Alliance Blog, and we stream live on Twitch, Kick, and YouTube every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 5 p.m., 6 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern at the Alliance Blog. Until then, we are the Alliance.